Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm Matt Lisle, and today is Monday, June 29th. This is episode 18 of the Coffee with Coach Lisle show, where I help parents, coaches, and athletes around the world tackle the challenges of life and athletics. Good morning, good morning. If you're just tuning in, let me know you're here. Let me know where you're tuning in from around the world this morning, or maybe it's this afternoon. Always enjoy seeing everybody, seeing some of the same faces every morning. It's pretty awesome. So good morning, Mike, and good morning, Michael. So I appreciate that. Jeff, thanks for the intro. It took me a long time to find and buy a great intro song, so I really like that one. Melanie, good morning. Ruben, good to see you again. Robin, I appreciate all of you guys tuning in every morning, so thank you so much. It's good to see all these familiar faces. So if you're just tuning in, let me know where you're tuning in from. Misty, good morning from Kansas. Good to see you guys. Appreciate you guys on this Monday morning, early Monday morning. Hopefully, I'm helping you get your week started off correctly. So good morning, Keith. Good morning, John. Good to see you guys. Awesome that you guys got to play this weekend a little bit. Angie, good morning from Fresno. So, again, thanks, you guys. Hey, if you're just tuning in, again, I'm always going to tell you guys, my goals for this show are 300 likes every morning. Every morning when we do this show, I want to get 300 likes, and I want to get 50 shares. If we get to 50 shares this morning, I'm going to send someone a random winner a signed copy of my book, Dear Coach. So hit that like button, hit that share button. Let's get some people that like to see this show. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Sam. Good morning from Texas. Nick's in St. Louis, one of my favorite towns. Tuning in from New York. Good to see you. Sam's tuning in from Iowa. Jeff's from Central Illinois. Awesome. Celeste, good to see you again in Nebraska. Jeremiah's back again from Missouri. Good seeing you guys all this morning. Wes says, good morning, Coach. Northwest Arkansas here. Barely awake. Got in from a tournament in Iowa around 1:30 this morning. I know that story. That's pretty. That means we're in travel ball season. Ron, good morning from Gilroy. Passed through there not yet on Saturday. My family and I went to Pebble Beach. Spent the day in Monterey, Pebble Beach. So passed through there. If you guys haven't noticed, my coffee mug this morning is Elvis Presley in Graceland. I'm a huge Elvis fan, one of the biggest in the world, I think. And if you haven't met my 7-year-old daughter, her name is Presley, and her name is Presley not for a coincidence. Mark, good morning from Utah. Jim in Pittsburgh, good morning. Good morning from Illinois, but not Chicago. Raymond, Guillermo's in Raymond, New Hampshire. Awesome. Good to see you guys. Joshua's tuning in from Missouri. They just won 9th in the nation and 23rd in the world in lacrosse, Wisconsin. That's awesome. Congrats. Jason's in Saskatchewan, Canada. Awesome. Kelly's in Southeast Wisconsin, and my kid finally gets to practice today. That's awesome. I know a lot of you guys are really happy about that. I know that you've been wanting to get playing. If you're just tuning in, hit that like button, hit that share button. Let me know where you're tuning in from. And remember, anytime if you can't catch this show at 7 a.m., I got an email this morning from a parent saying, hey, I don't have Facebook. How can I watch or how can I listen? You can always catch this show a few hours after on Apple Podcasts and Spotify Podcasts. And I also upload this show to YouTube, and I upload segments of the show to YouTube. So if you don't want to listen to all the intro part, you just want to get to the main stuff, you can go to YouTube on there, or you can listen on Apple Podcasts and Spotify podcasts. And this thing has gone up the charts. You guys have been downloading it. You guys have been hitting 5-star reviews. And I appreciate that very much. For anybody who has listened on podcasts, has hit 5-star review, I give you a thumbs up today and a like, and I appreciate you guys very much. So thank you for that. Emily says, I'm back on from Minnesota this morning. Desiree's in Ontario, Canada. Aaron in Montana, full weekend of games. That's awesome. Leslie said she's in Merced, not too far away from me. Katie's in Ohio. Bill's tuning in from West Virginia. Awesome, Sean. Great to see you from Vermont. One of my favorite movies of all time, White Christmas, is set in Vermont. Very Vermonty this time of year. One thing I want to tell you guys, a big announcement today. Some of you might be disappointed, but some of you might be happy. You may have caught this on social media yesterday. This Wednesday, which is 2 days from now, this will be the final show of the Coffee with Coach Lisle show. Okay, so we got today and 2 more days. this show has taken up a lot of time, and I wanted to practice some things, and at least for now, I might bring it back. But the reason why it's ending, because I am putting together and really putting a lot of hours in working on a new show called the Coach Lisle Show. And this Coach Lisle Show is going to have weekly guests, some big name guests I'm working on right now. I'm hoping to launch it in August, but it'll be a weekly show, an hour long, with some guests that you guys are really going to like and enjoy. And it won't be just about me talking the whole time. It'll be about some experts in the field talking, and I'm interviewing them. And think of it as a combination of a sports version of Oprah Winfrey / Dr. Phil. That's what I'm working on. So I will keep you guys updated on that. But in the meantime, Wednesday will be the last show. So thanks again for tuning in. If you're just tuning in, let me know where you're tuning in from. Hit that like button, hit that share button. We're going for 300 likes today, and I'm looking up at my scoreboard, and it shows 93 likes. So thank you for hitting that. Hit that button, smash that button, lightly tap that button. I don't care how you do it. Do that. So thank you guys again for tuning in this morning. I appreciate everybody from all over the country and all over the world. Canada, it's been awesome to see everybody. And I've learned so much from doing the show for the last month. I committed to doing this every weekday in June, and I've done it, and I've really enjoyed it. And I'm going to take everything that I learned that I thought worked really well, that you guys liked, and turn it into the next show. So as you're getting settled in this morning, let's talk about today's starting lineup. Today's starting lineup will lead off with a question for you guys, as always. Then in our Dear Coach segment, I'm going to share one of the craziest T-ball stories I've ever heard. And our main topic today, I'm going to talk about the post-game talk for parents, coaches, athletes, and the infamous car ride home. As always, we'll do a Q&A after that. So make sure you think about what questions you might want to ask this morning. We'll get Q&A going. And then our final segment of the show, I always give a quote or some coaching or parenting advice from my experience of, I've been coaching 22 years. I've been parenting for 23 years. So I try to give some advice and tips from my experience. And this morning, we're actually going to have two big questions for you guys. The first one's pretty lighthearted question. But the second question is going to be a little bit tougher. So I want you guys to try to be honest and share some things, but I want you guys to know. So that's today's starting lineup. So let's get into the first question of the morning. The first question is, who was your favorite coach growing up and why? So who was your favorite coach growing up and why? If you're friends with them on Facebook, you can even tag them in this post. But I want to hear from you. Who was your favorite coach growing up and why? For me, my dad coached me from about 5 years old till 15 years old for baseball. I think that's the only sport he ever coached me in, although I played a bunch of other ones. But he coached me. But I can tell you guys, my favorite coach of all time was a high school football coach. He was an assistant coach, and I met him my sophomore year, and he was also our music teacher. And I was really into music, and he made it okay that this jock athlete who wanted to be cool and be a sports guy, it was cool to be into music and into singing. And he kind of brought me into the singing, and eventually, that sophomore year, my junior year, I got into advanced choir, and his name was Coach Sansa, Coach Frank Sansa, and he was the epitome of loving his athletes. I had up until that point, I had never had a coach that was so invested in his students, and he was just so cool too. He got me to go out for advanced choir, and I even played Hamlet in a school play. Okay, I even played Hamlet in a school play. It was a comedy version of it, but. And he moved away my senior year of high school. That was he moved away almost 25 years ago. And to this day, I still stay in touch with him. We're friends on Facebook. We went golfing about 10 years ago. We try to stay in touch as much as possible, and I'm very grateful for him. So, Coach Sansa, I doubt you're listening this morning, but he lives in Texas. But you've had a huge impact on my life, and thank you for that. So, I'm curious to you guys. Who was your favorite coach growing up, and why? Good morning again to everybody who's tuning in. It's awesome to see. Mark's checking in, taking the kids to the dentist now. Been there. Susie's in Texas. Rob's tuning in from Marietta, Georgia. Brent's tuning in for Virginia. Jay, good to see you from Indiana. Jerry's from Richmond, Virginia this morning. Shane's at the Ripken Experience in Tennessee. Nice. We don't have too many international people today. Usually we get a few New Zealands, Denmark, United Kingdom. Looks like Canada might be our furthest away this morning. Mark's in Omaha, Nebraska. Got a bunch of Tennessees today. Jeff says, my dad was my favorite coach. Rest in peace, Pop. Jeff, that's awesome. I said, my dad coached me for a long time, and looking back, obviously one of my favorite coaches, and that's awesome that you got to share that with your dad. Brent says, Guy Buddenberg, he did it the right way, and no doubt my dad, he showed no favoritism. Lisa says, my high school softball coach, great communicator, firm but caring, would train with us in the weight room or doing cardio, knew the game and how to teach it, never felt like she played favorites. That's awesome. Trevor says, my dad, David, he was hard on me but taught me to love and respect the game from such a young age and has led me into my life of coaching my own son. Awesome. Pablo tuning in from Florida. Awesome. Oh, looks like we got our first, Craig might be winning our furthest away award this morning. He's tuning in from Dundee, Scotland. So good morning, Craig. I got to imagine it's probably around 7 p.m. dinner time and where you're at. Mandy's tuning in from Santa Claus, Indiana. Always wanted to visit there on one of my road trips. Jeff says, but the person who taught me the most about baseball was and is my son, Dylan, who will be a senior this year. So, again, if you're just tuning in, hit that like button, hit that share button. The question of the morning was, who was your favorite coach growing up and why? And so I want to hear from you guys on who that was. So don't forget to leave those in the comments at some point so that I can read those later today. Josh is tuning in from Butte, Montana. Adrian says, I'm further away. I'm in Ireland, 3:15 p.m. Ireland, that's what's on my list of bucket list of places to visit. Hopefully I can come visit you guys in the next couple of years. So that's awesome. Missy says, I loved my college coach. Very structured practices. He was tough yet caring. You might want to give him a shout out, Misty. What was his name? So good morning. Paul says, I have 7 sons. I have coached 4 so far. Once they hit 13 to 14, I drop off. I love it. That's awesome. I'm the oldest of 7, Paul, and I have 5 kids of my own, so I know how big families are in coaching and sports, and that's pretty awesome. So thank you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for letting me know who your favorite coach was growing up. That was the question of the morning, and I'm going to get you guys one more question of the morning. So let's get into our Dear Coach segment of the morning. If you don't know what the Dear Coach segment is, you are tuning in for the first time. The Dear Coach segment is from my book, Dear Coach. You can search it on Amazon. It's a book called Dear Coach, Real Emails from Parents Behaving Badly on the Field, at Home, and Behind Their Computer Screens. And since this show has launched on June 1st, so many of you have went out and bought this book. You've left 5-star reviews. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. It's been climbing up the charts, the bestseller charts, slowly but surely, and I appreciate that very much because you know that 100% of the proceeds of this book go to the Base Foundation. You can find out more about them at thebase.org. So every morning, the Dear Coach segment, I read a story from the Dear Coach segment. Some are funny, some are tragic, some are very sad, but I always read one of the stories. And these are all real stories, real emails that you guys, like I said, I always laugh at the comments that you guys leave for everybody because there's some of the craziest stories. So let's get right into this morning's Dear Coach segment, okay? This was an email I got from a T-ball coach. And it says, Dear Coach Lisle, I coach T-ball in our local rec league consisting of 4 to 6-year-old boys. I have been coaching for a long time and was coaching my youngest son's team. Last month at our end of season party, we handed out trophies to all the kids and told some funny stories about the season. Everyone was having a great time until one of the dads stood up and presented his son an MVP trophy that he had custom made. I had to spend the next 2 days responding to the other parents' emails who were confused as to why we handed out an MVP trophy to a 6-year-old. Sincerely, not amused. And such a great illustration here by Wes Molbash, who illustrated this book for me. And it's a dad holding the trophy at the T-ball ceremony and says, "And now we'd like to award the inaugural Todd Dalrymple League Legend MVP trophy to my son, Kevin Dalrymple." And I said, to me, when I read that story, I was dying laughing. But also, I got to imagine the horror on this T-ball coach's face as this was unfolding. That a parent would make a custom MVP trophy, get up and present it to their son at 5, 6 years old. And as unbelievable as it sounds, a part of me is like, yeah, doesn't shock me. Like nowadays, it does not surprise me at all that happened. So. Like I said, if you get a chance, check out my book, Dear Coach. Search it on Amazon. It's got so many funny entries like that, some great illustrations. It's a beautiful book. It was fun to do, and I'll probably do a Dear Coach 2 segment at some point, Dear Coach book number 2 at some point. So really funny book, really funny time. For me, I want to talk about our second question of the day. Okay, our second question of the day. I'm going to play a commercial for you guys. And then I want to hear your thoughts on this commercial afterwards. And then I'll share my thoughts after that. So get your keyboard ready, get your thumbs ready to type. I'm going to show you this commercial. I'm curious what your thoughts are as a parent after watching it. And again, try to be as honest as you can. There's no shaming or no judgment, but I am curious to see what you guys think about this commercial.
So, not your best practice. Can we agree on that? It seemed like you wanted to hang out with your friends more than practice. And that's fine if that's what you want to do. Just tell me. Because you can do that anytime. Maybe we can skip your next game. Because choosing to waste your time, that's one thing. But wasting my time and your coach's time? That's selfish. You don't care about other people. You don't care about hard work. You don't care about teamwork. That's why you're always on the bench, every time it matters. Your coaches think you're selfish too. Your hockey coach, your soccer coach, your football coach, everyone does. So, if you want to keep playing, you need to take a good hard look at yourself and think about that.
All right, so that was a commercial by True Sport. You can check them out online. They have a website. So I shared that video on Twitter about a year ago maybe, and it went viral, like 10 million views, 20,000 retweets. It went crazy, and it was really interesting dynamic because I would say that there was a good portion of people, I'm not going to say half, but maybe a quarter of the people who said, I saw nothing wrong with that video. That was a good message. That kid needed to hear that. On the other side of the coin, it was like, man, that was a terrible message. He was way too young for that. It wasn't needed right after practice. So there were opinions all across the border, and I think that's why it went viral. Not because it was an incredible video that everyone loved, but it was very controversial in the sense of people loving it, people hating it. And so I'm curious for you guys, and before I share my thoughts on it, what are your thoughts about that commercial specifically? That car ride home. Do you think that was way over the top? There was nothing wrong with that. I got a lot of messages on Twitter saying I got way worse than that, and I even had professional athletes saying my dad or mom was way harder on me than that, and that helped me to get to the pro level. So, like I said, I think there's opinions all across the board on that. I had a lot of kids and college kids or older kids say to me, hey, I quit the sport because of that car ride home. That's how my car ride was. I wish my dad didn't do that or mom didn't do that. So, I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are on that, and if you guys, what your opinion is on that commercial, and just on that specific one. Do you think that dad was too hard on him? Wasn't a big deal. Good message. What do you guys think? So, John says, good message, wrong delivery. And I think a lot of people had that reaction too. Jerry says, sounds like the parent's the one with the problem. As a coach, I wish I had a team of orphans. Heard that before a lot. Pablo says, I see it every day. Mike says, it totally depends on the kid. Okay, well, Jerry says that was over the top in my opinion. Jim says, you have to know your child and know what he or she responds is. That's good. Scott says, I try not to critique my daughter on the way home. I try to pick out the positive for that part. We can talk about it when we need to work at a later time. So, I said everyone's got different opinions on that commercial and different thoughts. I would love to hear what your guys' thoughts are on that this morning. John says it really depends on the kid. Reading his body posture, it was too much for that kid. That's good feedback. You can ask whether they thought they gave sufficient effort. Talk with them about that. So that's really good. For me, I just think you got to think about context. That kid seemed pretty young to me. He was already down getting in the car, so either he's had this talk from his dad before, or he was anticipating it, or maybe he had a bad practice. And when you have a bad practice, you get in the car, getting peppered by your dad. So, I don't know. I would be curious to see what everyone's thoughts are. So, as the show goes on, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I thought that was really, really interesting. So, for today's main talk, I want to talk about Postgame. Everything that happens when the buzzer sounds and the game is over. The Postgame talk for the coach, Postgame talk for the parent and the kid. And I want to talk about the infamous car ride home. Okay, so let's talk about it. And let's be honest. Okay, we have way too many kids in this country quitting sports because of their parents, and they're quitting younger and younger. Let's just be really honest about that. It isn't screen time. It isn't other things. A lot of times kids are quitting at especially a young age because of the parents. Off the field, the mom and dad seem normal. They're pretty cool at home. But when it's game time, the parents transform into these crazy people, yelling from the stands and all the crazy things that they do. There was a study a few years ago that asked hundreds of hundreds of college athletes to think about their worst memory from playing youth sports and from high school sports. The number one response was the car ride home from my parents. Number one worst memory of sports. And I can tell you, I personally have learned so much from proactive coaching. Probably my biggest mentor in my coaching career is a guy named Bruce Brown with proactive coaching. A lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about today, I learned from him. I learned from proactive coaching. They are an incredible organization. Make sure you check them out. But I remember a story that Bruce told me once about a college athlete he met. He was asking about her journey and how she got into lacrosse. And she said, well, I was a softball player until I was about 15 years old, and I couldn't handle my dad anymore, so I turned to lacrosse. And he said, well, why did you pick lacrosse? She said, because my dad doesn't know anything about lacrosse. And I was just like, holy cow. What an incredible story. This girl hated probably the car rides and her dad coaching her so much and the way he treated her and talked about her that she went to another sport and went to play in college because she knew her dad didn't know a lot about lacrosse. And that was her kind of escape from her dad. So understand whether your child is just beginning t-ball. Some of you have really young kids and they're just starting their journey and you're a first-time parent. Or you're a parent who's a lot of kids that are older, travel ball, even college. I want to give you some tips for post-game for parents and coaches. Okay, first, let's start with the do-nots. Because here's where a lot of parents go wrong. Number one, they overemphasize the sport at the expense of sportsmanship, okay? We as a coach, we ask our athletes to give 100% effort, 100% good attitude, and 100%. We ask them for good body language. But for many parents, we need to hold them to the same standards. We ask our kids to do these things. We want them to, college coaches, to see their attitude, effort, their hustle, their good body language. But we don't see this from the parents in the stand. We got to hold them to the same standard. And parents, during the game, encouragement is crucial, especially when things aren't going well in the field. An error is made, a mistake, they miss a layup, they miss a shot. Instead of yelling, "You got to have that! Come on!" Encouragement is what we need, and coaches know that too. Get it next time. Hey, you're good. You get it next time. Keep working on your effort. Things like that. Encouragement is needed in those times, not bad body language, bad attitude. These things we ask our kids to do. And then do not have different goals than your child. Okay? To me, that's one of the biggest problems that happens around high school, 13, 14, 15 years old. The parent is all about the D1 scholarship or whatever the goal is, and the kid just wants to play the sport. For most kids, they play sports because it's fun. We play because it's a fun sport to do. It's something we enjoy doing with our friends. We like the competition. Most kids don't sign up for travel ball because they're like, "Oh, I got to get a D1 scholarship." Okay, I'm trying to do that. Most kids are playing because they want to have fun. So parents, if your goals are much different than your kids, that's a big red flag. It's a big issue. Parents usually have vastly different goals. And as we talked about last week, parents and kids need to get on the same page. And in most cases, what I mean by that is parents need to get on the same page as their child and what their child's goals and wants are. And then I would tell you, to me, one of the most heartbreaking things that I've seen across the country, talking to parents and going around the country speaking, is that number one do not for me is treating your child differently after a loss or a win, or treating them differently after a good performance or a bad performance. I ask parents all the time about, loving their child. They say, my kid knows that I love them no matter what. And they say that. But almost all parents love their children the same regardless. And I do believe that. But if you ask the kids, their parents' behavior says something different. Okay. Many kids I've talked to have said that their parents' conversations after the game, the post-game talk, the car ride home, that they feel like their identity and their worth as their child is dependent on their performance. The kids are telling me this, not the parents, and there's some disconnect there. So parents, understand and communicate this. Communicate this to your kid. I love you no matter how well you play, whether you score 20 points or 0 points, whether you hit a home run or you strike out 4 times. I love you no matter what. And even if you think you do that, over-communicate that, because a lot of kids tell me, I feel like my parents love me more when I do well and treat me poorly when I don't do well. And that's a big, big issue to me. The next do not for parents. The next do not. Undermining the coach. Undermining the coach. Okay? Young athletes, especially high school, is a lot. They need a single instructional voice during the game. Okay, T-ball I know is different. We're shouting things from the stands to get our kids to pay attention. But as they get older, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 years old, stop coaching them from the stands. They need a single voice instructing them. That voice has to be their coach. Kids who listen to their parents or always look to their parents in the stands, yelling instructions or glancing for approval, they're not going to ever reach their potential. Your kids will never reach their potential if they're listening to different voices. They're listening to you in the stands. Stay away from it. Stay encouraging. Cheer for the team. Do not shout instructions from the stand beyond maybe 5, 6 years old, okay? Do not do it. And then I would tell you guys, a simple question from the ride home. A lot of times what happens is parents think they're being encouraging on the way home, and they get in the car, and they're trying to encourage them, and they say the wrong things. They say like, why does Jessica always get to play catcher? Or, why does your coach always play zone defense? and they think they're trying to be supportive of you because you didn't, play. But what you're doing is you're undermining the coach, and you're undermining the coach's authority. And the kid is starting to think, well, my parent thinks that, so the coach is not right. I'm not going to respect what the coach says. And it makes it really confusing for the kids. It makes it frustrating. And so undermining the coach is a huge, huge issue we see. It happens all the time around the country, and it's a really, really big issue. So stay away from undermining the coach. Another one we see, if I was to ask parents out there what they think about other parents, the number one answer I get is living your dreams through your child. Okay, this is something that has happened. I don't know if it's been something that's always happened or just something in the last 10 to 20 years, but I hear it all the time. Parents talking about their kid as if they're talking through themselves, like they're taking credit for what their child did. We worked so hard on his hitting this week. We did this. We practiced his goal shots all week in the garage. And it's like, or they say things like, you did it just like I taught you. Or he says things like that. You know what? He's pitching just like I taught him how. And it's like, whoa, you're making this about you. You're living through your child. Like I said, to me, you got to stop doing that. Okay. Watch your language and how you talk to other parents. Do you notice whether you're taking credit for your kids or you're giving them credit? Shine the light on them. Do not shine it on you. And so notice that in the next this summer or next year, when you're talking to other parents or other coaches about your kid, are you taking the credit for what they do? Are you reflecting it onto you, or are you giving the credit onto them? And a lot of times what happens, I see a lot of, is that the outcome of the game, whether they win or lose, it means more to the parent than the kid. And that's okay. Parents, that's okay. If you as a parent are depressed or sad or emotional after a loss, when your children, your kids playing the game, they're having fun, they're giving good effort, remind yourself that as a parent, you have no control over the outcome of the game. Okay? It's not about you. It's about them. Even in a loss, did they have fun? Did they learn something? And that's it. I see parents all over the country getting emotional after games, like personally and physically emotional and angry. And their emotions are all high. And the kid is like, oh man, I had fun with my friends. And it's not that they don't care. It's just that if the parents sometimes just care so much more than the kid. To me, that's a huge, huge issue. Emotions are really high, disappointment, frustration. A lot of times the kids are exhausted from the game. They're exhausted from their parents in the stands. So, do not do those things. Do not do those things. So let's talk about that. So I kind of gave you guys a picture of like what I would call the nightmare parents. Nightmare parents. You hear the stories. You might recognize yourself in some of those stories and some of the things that you do. Hopefully if those are some of the things that you recognize that you do, maybe it's a little accountability piece for you. But I want to give you some some tips. You might not be you don't want to be a nightmare parent, I don't think. So let me give you some post-game tips. Okay. Number one, during the game, cheer for everybody on the team, not just your child. Okay. Parents should, you want to attend as many games as possible and be supportive. Don't feel the need to come to the rescue and only cheer for your kid. Continue to make positive comments, even when the team's struggling. Bruce Brown, one of the things he taught me is this, and I started noticing it as I went to games of my kids. I watched the other parents in the stands, and I noticed that some parents, they only cheer for their kid and nobody else. And as I'm watching, I'm just like, man, this is a team sport. All the parents are together. We want our kids to succeed. Why don't we cheer for everybody? Let's cheer for all the kids. Let's learn the kids' names on your team and cheer for them. Not coach them or criticize them, but let's encourage everybody on the team. And to me, those are the best parents that I see in the stands, are the ones who are encouraging and cheering for all the kids on the team, not just their kid. And I've never thought about it before. And like I said, when I go to games now, I watch parents do this. And then parents, we talked about attitude, effort, body language. Model these behaviors. Okay, model these behaviors for kids. If the kids see that you are doing those things in the stands, showing good body language, good attitude, good effort, and modeling good behavior, it's way easier for them to follow that. And when a parent doesn't do this, to me as a kid, it shows me, well, if my mom and dad are going to act that way, it should be okay for me to act that way too. And obviously when it comes to post game, know what's suitable to discuss with the coach after the game. We talked about this in a playing time talk and how to talk to your coach, making sure that you're not talking about playing time or strategy, discussing other kids on the team. And then I would just say, post game wise, when your kid is ready to talk to you, listen. Be a great listener. And stop talking. Parents talk at our kids post game. We don't listen. Instead, start listening to your kids. Be an encourager, but listen to what they're saying after the game. Be your child's biggest fan. Okay, be your child's biggest fan. Good athletes, I think to me, they're allowed to talk. They're allowed to have that forum, and their kids really listen to them. Give them time and space to digest the game. Okay. One of the biggest things that I would talk about, we talked about the 24-hour rule. To me, it's one of the things that give them time, give them space to digest the game, and come down physically, emotionally, mentally. Let them come down first. And if you do that, the conversation is way more likely to be a better conversation after the game, hours after the game. Like I said, the 24-hour rule is great, but if you do it within minutes of the game, emotions are high for both the parent sometime and the kid. That's never a good time to have a constructive conversation. So stop doing that, okay? I would say one of the only rules to this. So I want to make an exception. This is something I learned from Bruce Brown. He made a really good point. The exception to this rule is when your child engages in behavior that you would not accept at home. Like you're at the game, your kid totally acts out. He's cussing out the other players. He's done something. He's assaulted another player. He's disrespecting the coach or disrespecting the other team. This is a whole different ballgame. Okay. In these cases, you're taking over as a parent. Like, hey, this is unacceptable, and it's not about your attitude, your effort, your scoring, but this is about you've really done something badly. And so even then, you got to be careful with the emotions. You got to calm things down. You don't want to do that with emotions. Maybe you want to wait a few minutes, but you need to deal with it and then move on. Okay, this is something. It doesn't happen very often, but if your kid does something really, really bad in the game, obviously I want to address that. Okay, and I'll tell you, the vast majority of moms and dads that I talk to, they make the ride home miserable, and they don't do it on purpose. They're not trying to do it. They're not the crazy parents in the stands. They're quiet. They don't scream at the referees. They don't loudly, they're not yelling at the coaches. They don't berate their children. They're not terrible parents in the stands. They're really good parents in the stands. They're really encouraging. They're really quiet. You would never see that. They're very well intentioned. But when they get in the car, all of a sudden, just the words that come out aren't great. Okay, so just be really careful about your words after the game, even if you're a great parent during the game, okay? And my number one advice for that car ride home or post game is to listen and not talk, okay? Now, for any coaches listening, if you are a coach, tune into here. I want to talk to you for a minute. If you are coaching a team, I don't care what age they are, I want to give you some post-game talk advice from my 22 years of coaching. And I've been doing post-game talks for 22 years now. And so I want to give you some tips. And I've made every bad post-game speech you can think of. I've ranted for 20 minutes plus. I've singled out kids. I've yelled. I've walked away in disgust. I've said things like, I have nothing to say to you guys, and I walk away. Okay, I've been an immature idiot in my career, my 22 years. It's been a long time since I've done those things, and I'm proud about that. But I have done those things in my career. Now, let's talk about how I am now. 22 years later, a little bit more mature. My post-game talks average about 2 minutes. 2 minutes max. 5 minutes at the very most. And they're 100 times better than they were 10 to 15 years ago. And I think if you ask my athletes that, they would say the same thing. And I know that the athletes appreciate that. And I know the parents and fans really appreciate that I keep my talks under 2 minutes. So here are a few things I want to talk to you to remember if you're a coach for your post-game speech. Number one, these are kids. Okay, you're the coach, you're a teacher, you're an educator, and these are kids. Think about if you're a teacher in a classroom. How would you talk to your kids? And remember, the kids are impressionable. They're real people. And if they've lost a tough game, they feel awful too. Okay, there's not too many kids that lose a game that are like happy that they lost. Okay, they're feeling pretty bad about it too, and maybe not as much as you are. Maybe you're taking it a lot more personally, but they're not happy about it too. And they may feel worse about it, especially if they're the ones who feel like they lost the game for the team. That could be it could be really bad. It's a big rivalry game. It's a big game to them. They lost. So do not ever let your emotions get the better of yourself. And I've done it many times. I've seen coaches do it. I have seen in college coaches rant for 30, 45 minutes cussing out their teams. And I'm just like, that coach is doing it for them. They're not doing it for the athletes. They're just doing it for themselves. They're unhealthy, and it's just not a good way to do it. And that's not the point of a post-game speech. The point of the post-game speech is not for you to rant and rave, get upset. That's not the point of it. And then remember, what you say, they're going to remember this for a long time. So be careful with your words. Use them wisely. Think about what you're going to say. I always really think about my post-game speech. As soon as the game's over, we go to the high five line. We've got a couple minutes before we all get together. I really kind of rehearse in my head what I'm going to say before we get to that thing. I don't just wing it most of the time. I think about what exactly I'm going to say when we get to the meeting. If you use phrases like, we absolutely suck today. We're not going to win a single game this year the way you guys are playing. We're never going to win if we do that. I'm telling you, at the next practice, the kids are going to be like, wow, coach doesn't think we're going to ever win. He thinks we suck. So he has no faith in us. That's really sad. So, it's going to be hard for me to get buy-in from my athletes to work hard at the next practice if the last thing I said to them before that practice is, you guys suck, you're not good, we're not going to win. If you leave it like that, why would I get buy-in from my athletes at the next practice? So, stay away from anything horrible like that. And then remember this. Almost every parent asks their kid, what did the coach say after the game? It's just something that happens. A lot of parents ask their kids, what did the coach say? And, I can tell you right now, if you didn't say the right things or if you were a total jerk, that's going to go on to the parents, and then the parents are going to go to work the next day or the dinner table or anybody else, and they're gonna spread this terrible coach that they have and everything else. And now with social media and stuff like that, it's really easy to go on social media and be like, well, my kid's coach said this, this, and this, and it could be true. So everyone wants to know what the coach says after the game, even the media. In college, they always ask us in interviews after the game, ask the players, what did the coach say after the game? What did the coach say to you? So, and I do this with my own kids all the time. It's kind of the one question I sometimes ask, hey, what did your coach say after the game? Because we're interested in knowing what the coach thinks. Then understand, coaches, sometimes you make mistakes, okay? One of the hardest things for me in my career that I learned eventually was to own my mistakes and take responsibility for them. Take ownership. That's tomorrow's topic, taking ownership. But for coaches, taking ownership means if you messed up and the game was on you, you made a mistake. I can think of a game in college where I lost us a big game because I didn't do the substitution right. I wasn't paying attention somehow. I forgot to re-enter this person, and we ended up losing the game because of it. And I apologize to the team. And I can tell you right now, if you accept responsibility for that, you made a mistake, you own it, your athletes are going to respect you a lot more. But if you lose a game and it's your fault and you didn't do something right, and then you put it back on your athletes, they're not going to respect you. Again, you're going to lose that buy-in. You're blaming everybody else, and it teaches athletes that blame is okay. So whatever the case is, and honestly, the kids know. They know in their head, oh man, coach really messed that up. Or, hey, I know this happened. If you put that blame on them, they're going to get defensive too. Like, well, that wasn't my fault, coach. You did that. And you create this thing. But if you can lead with, hey, guys, in the third inning of the game, I did this. I'm really sorry. I blew it. And I messed this thing up, and I take responsibility for it, and I'm sorry. It goes a long way. So, and then I will tell you guys, less is more. Sometimes the most effective thing you can do in a post-game talk is not say anything at all. Just say something really light. Hey, guys, good effort today. Let's go home. We'll talk about it on Monday. Or, hey, guys, let's go get some ice cream. And it's a really short. Don't even talk about the game because maybe you don't have the right thing to say. You don't know what to say. Your emotions are really high, and so my thought always remember, keep it simple, keep it quick, and then send them on their way. And if you need to, if you're one of those parents, you're like, oh man, I've tried all these things, I still can't do it. Take a couple minutes. Say, hey guys, we'll meet in 5 minutes in the bleachers or 5 minutes in the right field, whatever you guys talk together. Take a couple minutes to calm down. Get it yourself together and do that. So I'll tell you guys, when I do a post-game speech, I try to focus on two main things, okay? I lead with, what did we do well today? And I'll ask them, hey, what did we do well today? And I'll say some things we did well. Hey, you know what? I noticed today we really did a good job of picking each other up on the bench. There was good talk in the dugout. I thought we did a really good job running the bases today. Good effort there. Hey, what do you guys think we need to work on today? Or I noticed that our throws in the outfield today, they weren't great. We didn't do this very well. So we need to work on those things. On Monday, we'll work on those things. So what did we do well? What did we work on? Make it engaging with them. Okay. It's not just the coach talking to them. Ask them questions, engage them, make it about 2 minutes. And then remember, everything that happened in the game, we can talk about it at practice on Monday or whatever day the next practice is. We can talk about, all the things we need to talk about and coach them up in that practice versus trying to coach them up when they're tired, exhausted, not listening, and we don't need to hash it out right there in the huddle. Okay, everyone's tired, they don't want to listen. It's just not needed, so don't do it. And I can tell you guys, I've spent over 20 years as both a parent and a coach, so I can tell you firsthand how many kids I've seen quit because of their parents. And I can tell you how many others have told me how great their parents were, how supportive they were, and the car rides weren't terrible, and their parents didn't grill them. Remember that study with the hundreds of college students at the very beginning of this that said their number one worst thing in all of their career was a ride home with their parents? These same college athletes were asked what their parents said that made them feel great. That amplified their joy during the game and after the game and the car ride home. And their number one response was, when my parents said, I love to watch you play. So next time your kid gets off the field and gets into the car, just try it. Just once or twice or maybe more. Just say, hey buddy, I love to watch you play, and see what happens. Maybe throw in a, hey, want to get some ice cream? Or what do we want for dinner tonight? And save the lecture for another day. I promise you will not regret it. I love to watch you play. All right, guys, that is our ride home talk for the day. Our main topic this morning, if you're just tuning in, just finished. It was all about post-game. It was all about the ride home. So if you're just tuning in and you missed it, I'll put it up on Apple Podcasts and Spotify Podcasts later on. But hopefully you're able to get to that. We're going to get to our Q&A time next. So if you have any questions ready to go, I'm going to put 10 minutes on the shot clock. We'll do some Q&A this morning before we go. If you're just tuning in, thanks again. Let me know where you're tuning in from. We're trying to get to 300 likes today. We're trying to get to 50 shares. I'm looking at the scoreboard and it says 237 likes, 238 likes. Let's get to 300 likes this morning. If you're just tuning in this morning, the question of the day was, where are you tuning in from? Let me know. We've got people from all over the world tuning in this morning, this afternoon for some of you, in Ireland and some other places. So That's great. We're going to get to our Q&A time now. Hit that like button, hit that share button, get your questions ready. I'll put 10 minutes on the shot clock, and I'll start looking for our questions this morning. Lisa asked our first question this morning, and she says, what do you say if they don't play? I loved watching you play, but playtime has been an issue. I know he works hard. I think it would be something like, hey, buddy, let's talk about the playing time thing tomorrow. Have you talked to your coach about it? I know you want more playing time. If it's a kid who is very young and not getting a lot of playing time at all, I would reevaluate what team they're on. That should not happen. Playing time should not be an issue for your kid until high school at the latest. So if that is an issue for you at a younger age, there's going to need to be either a conversation with the coach, you're on the wrong team, something going on there. But what I would say to my kid is, hey, do you want more playing time? What do you think is the playing time issue? I wouldn't talk about it in the car ride home because they're probably upset they didn't play right there. But to me, that would be the thing that I would say I would do it maybe the next day or at dinner time. Say, hey, buddy, I know you didn't get a lot of playing time today. How can I help you with that? Or what do you think? Have you talked to the coach? And I would do that conversation a lot better. So Mike says, as a dad/coach, after a game when nothing went well, what do you say to the team and your own son? So again, I keep it very simple. What did we do well? And there's got to be something you can focus on. They had to have done something well. Or you can point out one of the athletes on your team. Hey, Joey, you did a great job today with your effort. Your attitude was really good throughout the whole game. Thanks, Joey. Without singling out other players and telling them they did a bad job. And then I would tell you, hey guys, what do we need to work on? We lost the game. What do you guys think we need to work on at practice on Monday? And get them to engage. And they may not say anything and say, hey, you know what? I don't think we did our zone defense really that well today. And take some ownership of it. Hey, maybe I didn't prepare you guys as well as I thought for practice. Next practice, we're going to really work on zone defense or dribbling or whatever the thing is. What did we not do well? What do we need to work on? And make the conversation about what do we need to work on. To me, that would be the thing. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in all over the country today. It's awesome. I appreciate that very much. Sunny New Jersey, Pacifica, beautiful Pacifica. It's a great place to be in California. Right, if you're tuning in, we're in our Q&A time right now. We've got about 7.5 minutes left. So I'm going to try to get to as many questions as I can. John said, someone once told me getting the best athletic performance out of girls is different than boys. The quote was, boys generally need to play good to feel good. Girls need to feel good to play good. I agree with that quote. I do notice generally girls seem to be able to recover quicker mentally following an error. What are your experiences, insight, coaching the mental side of softball versus baseball? To me, the biggest thing about coaching boys versus girls is that, and this is my own experience, is that coaching girls, I've got to be softer in my language. Sarcasm is really horrible with girls, and the harder the language is in the sense of the toughness of it or frustration does not land well. So for me, what coaching girls have really done and coaching women have really done for me is it's helped me to become a better coach and watching my language, not in the sense of bad language, but in my tone, my delivery, how I say things, saying things softer, saying things that are going to be received better. So for me, that's one of probably the biggest things for me is when I coach girls, I've learned to just have a softer delivery, not be so harsh, not be as sarcastic. That probably I got away with more when I coached men or coached boys. I haven't coached a boys team in 8 years, which is incredible. I coached in the major leagues. I've worked with a lot of major league players for the last 5 years. So I still work with a lot of men and 18-year-old boys, 19-year-old kids to me, but I haven't coached a boys team since 2012. And so I would hope that I would be different in my delivery with them now than I was then. So I appreciate that. Ken, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the encouragement. I appreciate every time you guys leave a positive comment. It means a lot to me. I appreciate everybody who's tuning in. I look up at the scoreboard and it says 369 likes, and I know that you guys don't have to do that. So I appreciate you guys hitting that like button, smash that like button, tap that like button. It always cheers me up when I see the high number, because it tells me you guys are paying attention and you guys are getting some value out of this. And so hit that like button, hit that share button if you feel like this gives you some value. The share button really gets it to people who have never seen it before. So that's great. Robin says there's a fabulous coaches training course called Keeping Girls in Sports. I highly recommend it. Maybe give that a Google search. It might help you. Scott says, how do you help athletes let go after making a mistake, error, strikeout, etc.? Scott, my best answer for you is to go back. You can go to youtube.com/Coach Lisle, and I do a whole segment on failure, recovery from failure, and how to flush it. So go back to my YouTube channel, watch that video. It goes into it in depth. And I would tell you the best way to do that is to teach them to have a flush mechanism. And I talked a lot about that last week. You can go on YouTube and find that. Okay. Rob says, instead of making the kids run polls, how do you hold them accountable for missing a sign, being picked off, etc.? So Rob, in the last 7-8 years, I have never, to my knowledge, punished a kid with conditioning. I think punishing kids with conditioning is a terrible idea. It makes conditioning a bad thing. I would never, I don't do that at all. So to me, one, I think running polls is dumb in general. But number two, I never punish kids with that. How do I keep them accountable to missing a sign or being picked off? They sit on the bench. They don't get playing time. If I've taught you to do something and I'm going to keep you accountable to that, you don't get to play in the game. And it's not like right then and there I'm pulling you out of the game, you're getting in trouble. But there is some grace involved. Hey, why did you miss that sign? Oh man, coach, I'm sorry, this happened. Okay, cool, it's all right, don't forget next time. If it happens 5 times in a week, it's like, hey Johnny, I've given you the signs, you keep missing it. Hey, I'm going to give someone else another opportunity. So you've got to find that space for them. Keeping them accountable sometimes is giving them some grace. And then if they can't do that, they got to ride the bench. Playing time is the thing that they want the most. So if I run to the pull and back or run some pulls, okay, I'm mad at the coach for making me run, but a lot of times it doesn't fix the issue. It can be done, but I just don't think it's the best. I don't think it's the best way. Braden asks, Braden, the kid, it looks like, junior high kid. So Braden, thanks for tuning in, junior high buddy. I play for the Jackson, Ohio 7th, 8th grade team, and I was wanting some advice to get better in quarantine. Any advice? Braden, my advice would be do everything you can by yourself. Ask your parents for equipment that you could train in your backyard. I have a website called thehittingvault.com. There's so many videos on Twitter and YouTube that you could find to work on a certain thing. So if you want to work on fielding or free throws, the internet is an incredible place to teach us things. So my advice is to hit the Google button, hit the YouTube button, and learn some things. We got 2 minutes left on our shot clock this morning. Terry asks, my son is a different person depending on the team he is on. He is more nervous, negative on himself, and stressed out on his local team with his friends from school. When we go to his part-time travel ball team, he is more upbeat and really seems to enjoy the game. He notices the difference in himself as well. How do we keep him feel comfortable at this home league game as he does as his travel ball team? For me, the biggest thing was I would sit down and talk to him. I would problem solve with him. Why is the difference? What is it? You're kind of alluding to it a little bit, but I want to get down to the root of it. Why is it that your son is like that differently? So to me, that would be a big conversation to have. And you might find where the root is and you might be able to figure that out. If you're just tuning in, we've got 456 likes on my scoreboard. Thanks for hitting that like button. If you're just tuning in somehow and you missed most of our show, you can always check it out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts afterwards, and on youtube.com/Coach Lisle. And let me know where you're tuning in from. I love to see where you guys are tuning in from around the world. So awesome. We've got 47 seconds left on the clock this morning. So I'll get to one more question this morning. Let's see what we've got here. Our last question of the morning is going to be from Preston. Preston asks, how do you handle a pitcher that's hurt but gets frustrated when they get pulled out, and they will tell you that fine, but you can see the difference in her pitching. So the pitcher's hurt. They're getting frustrated, and you pull out of the game, and they want to stay in the game. I would just recognize, hey, I appreciate how competitive you are and how badly you want to win and you want to succeed. And I would acknowledge that. And then I would tell them, you know what, though? Your health and your long-term health to our team, the season, your career is so much more important than this single game. This game means nothing in the grand scheme of things, but your health is really important. So let's get you healthy. I love how competitive you are. I love that about you. But your health, short-term, long-term, and career-wise is so much more important. So let's focus on that right now. That is more important. So to me, that's really great. Thank you, everybody who's tuned in from around the world this morning. It's really awesome. I appreciate all the comments, the questions. The second question of the morning was, for anybody who's paying attention, the second question of the morning was, who was your favorite coach growing up and why? Who was your favorite coach growing up and why? We got a few. Dads were my favorite coach, high school coach. I always love to hear from you guys. Who was your favorite coach growing up and why? And as we wrap up our Q&A this morning, I want to leave you guys with a quote of the day. For me, the number one thing that I want you guys to understand, and this is a quote that I got. It's on my Instagram right now. It says, it's not about D1, D2, D3, JC, NAIA. It's about having 4 more years to pursue the dream. I've coached at every level. I've coached D1 in the SEC and the Pac-12. I've coached it at a high level D1, at a smaller level D1. I've coached in the major leagues. I've coached D2. I've coached D3. I've coached JC. I've coached NAIA. I have literally coached at every level. Parents and kids, if you're listening, let go of the level. Let go of the level. Stop comparing yourself to other kids on your team, in your area, at the tournament, at the showcase. Let go of it. Make your choice around education and your experience. What type of education you want to get, what type of experience you want to have. Make that the point of your choice, okay? And for those of you who are listening who really, really want to play college, you've done everything you can. You give your best effort. You give your best attitude. You're working your butt off, and you're not getting recruited. I promise you, there is a place for you to play at the next level. No matter what your ability is, there is a place. Whether it's D3, NAIA, JUCO, there is a level if you want it. You just got to go out there and find it. My youngest brother, Logan, was an all-state football player in high school and played baseball as well, and went on and he played Division III football and baseball at Bethel University in Minnesota. Okay, he moved from sunny California to the snow in Minnesota because he wanted to play so badly, and he got to play 2 sports in college, which is awesome. So remember, it's not about the level. Don't make it about the level. Don't compare yourself to other people. All right. If you want to connect with me on social media, you can. You can connect with me on YouTube at Coach Lisle. Follow me on Instagram at Coach Lisle. Follow me here on Facebook at Coach Lisle, and follow me on Twitter at Coach Lisle. Connect with me there. And before you leave this morning, make sure you connect with me on social media. Hey, I had a lot of fun this morning. Thank you to everybody who tuned in and shared some coffee with me. But now it's time to say goodbye. But I'll see you again tomorrow. Same time, same place. Now go out and win the day.